Hi, I'm Kimberlyn from Life's Work Yoga. Welcome to Story Time. We're here to connect by sharing our stories. And by sharing our stories, we share our hearts. We connect more deeply, more intimately with ourselves and each other by simply sharing our stories. And whether it's live in real time or anytime on your time, we come together to be together. So when you find yourself in need of some inspiration or guided introspection, that's what I do. That's why I'm here. It's my life's work, my dharma. So whether it's related to your practice on the mat or out in the world, to me, it's all yoga. And by that, I mean it's all part of living and learning. In other words, we're not here to be perfect or to perform, but rather to practice. And let me be clear, I am not here because I have it all figured out. On the contrary, I'm here because I believe that no matter what we've accomplished, what we've endured, life is better when we come together authentically and compassionately to share our stories. Now, we're on an adventure together. The adventure of living daily life rooted in compassion, but also the adventure I call the 7 C's of inspired shift. Last time we talked about confidence and its sister mindset of competence. I don't believe we can shift without a bit of both, or more specifically, by authentically building one, we build its sister strength too. So today, we'll revisit the idea of these sister skills and conclude with a bit of a deeper dive into tapas, or diligent practice. Practice makes, well, if not perfect, what is the point of practice? The point of practice is to get comfortable in these shifts. Practice builds patience, perseverance, and perspective. The power of learning to say no, thank you. So today's story is about thrill rides and adrenaline and how I learned a transferable skill to say no, thank you. So let me take you back. It was the summer of 1979. My family was literally mid-route and a move from Texas to Maine. The family was caravanning in 2 vehicles. My mom drove our extra long, extra tall school bus yellow van and pulled our pop-up camper. Dad drove our smaller family vehicle and pulled his 1971 Datsun pickup. There was 8 of us at this time, a dog, Benji, and my cat, Choo Choo, all in the vehicles. Now, somewhere along our trip, we visited a large amusement park. It was a big deal for my family. I honestly don't remember where it was located, but what I do remember is that my brothers were thrilled by the idea of roller coasters. I less so. At the time, I was the 4th of 6, later to be 7 kids. The youngest was 2 and really too small to ride any of the big rides. But the rest of them, my sister included, wanted the thrill, the speed, the suspended inversions of roller coasters. So we crossed the park campus, a straight path for the biggest ride of the park. Upon arrival of the growing line of riders, we learned that an adult was needed to accompany my younger sister. The 2 older brothers were tall enough to venture forth on their own, but the younger needed a chaperone. Dad agreed, leaving me, Mom, and the baby to wait. The boys ran ahead. I walked next to my mom with one hand on the stroller, probably a death grip in my knuckles. Dad looked at me, checking in one last time to see if I wanted to join them. I couldn't speak. I just shook my head with a trace of fear wetting my eyes. But what happened next was completely unexpected. I expected to be teased. I awaited cajoling. I anticipated that Dad would encourage me to give it a try. I thought he wanted me to get on the roller coaster. And as the first daughter following 3 boys, I climbed trees, I rode horses, not bulls or steers, but I jumped off a 2nd-story deck and platform diving boards to prove that I could keep up with those boys, or more accurately, to avoid being left out, or worse, to disappoint someone. Instead, Dad said, I was the smartest one of the bunch. I was the smartest of the bunch? Never imagined. Now, this was absolutely life-changing for me, to think that my bull-riding cowboy dad was afraid of, or at least thought it was a bit crazy, to ride a roller coaster. I think this was the first time I ever felt smarter than my older brothers and content to decline a challenge. It was enough without having to endure the nerve-wracking roller coaster ride. Now, I wish I could tell you that everything changed at that point, and I no longer felt an internal need to participate in scary activities or doubted my worthiness and enoughness. That is not the case, at least not completely. But I did have a little more leeway. So let's fast forward a few years. In college, I signed up for a field trip adventure to a skydive park with my floor mates. It was a day trip to train and then conclude with a jumping out of an airborne airplane. I distinguished that plane was airborne because Patrick, the second eldest brother, he used to explain that a scar that he had on his shoulder occurred when he jumped out of an airplane at the age of 8, which he did. The fact that it was a decommissioned Cessna planted on stilts in our neighbor's backyard was conveniently left out of the story. The scar made it look like he had literally lost his arm in the jump. Now, let's get back to the skydiving adventure. I was excited about the opportunity, but this time I'd been cajoled by my peers. I rationalized my participation while concealing a deep desire to overcome some level of my own fear and earn my status as belonging to McCormick 4th floor. At the time of my skydiving adventure, my brother Patrick had just returned from a summer ranger training as part of his ROTC military commitment. Now, this included jumping out of airplanes, and so I had some preconceived competition, right? I grew up in a very competitive family environment. If he could do it, there was no way I wasn't going to try it. And so there was this undercurrent of a double dog dare for me to do the same, if not more. In this case, I rationalized it was enough to do the skydiving jump. I didn't also need to join the military, which I can't even imagine me in the military. So as the day proceeded, I enjoyed learning the skills and practicing the sequence of how to activate the chute and control the landing. I was even able to laugh when our flight instructor told us that if we didn't jump, he would help us out the door. I was well versed in this kind of help, thanks to my brothers. When it came time to go up into the plane, my old friend anxiety showed up full force. It took every ounce of concentration to breathe while strapping on my parachute. Remember, this was before I was a yogi and trained in breath practice. My instructor checked all of my attachments and signaled that I was ready. But was I? I should have said no. I was actually relieved then when they announced that on account of weather, we wouldn't be heading out as scheduled. After that first delay, we tried again, this time boarding the plane and taxiing to the runway. I still didn't say no, only to be called back. The winds had picked up and they were concerned we would be blown off course once we took flight in our chutes. Just being in the hangar, I felt like I had been blown completely off course. What was I thinking? What did I ever think I wanted to do this? I paid for this? Another 2 hours later, as daylight started to run thin, the jump was called. There would be no parachute ride today. We were all invited to return another day to complete our skydiving adventure. A lifetime guarantee, they said. And initially, I felt both disappointed and relieved. By the time we made it back home, way after dark, I was fully disappointed. Only now, I was disappointed in myself for not feeling relieved. It's been over 30 years. I don't think I'll be cashing in my rain check. In fact, I know I won't. I have no desire to throw myself out of a plane or to be pushed out for that matter. Now, the day that I was writing and preparing for this story time, Peter greeted me at the breakfast table with a harrowing story from NPR of a roller coaster ride that broke in mid-operation with its riders suspended upside down for over 30 minutes. Like I needed more support for my developing confidence to not do dangerous things. Last month, I read an article about another coaster that had a huge crack in the support structure while in active use at the very peak of its climb. Last month, we hosted the county fair just around the corner from here. Needless to say, I didn't go on any rides, and I even asked the kids to not tell me their plans until after they were home safe. To be clear, as far as I know, no one was hurt on any of these stories. But tempting fate by seeking fear-inducing experiences takes its toll. And I'm pretty sure we have enough stressors in this life as it is. But I'll save that for another day. Now, there is some truth to the notion that these kinds of choices help us to put everyday challenges into perspective. So what is the lesson that I hope you capture from me sharing these stories? Patience, perseverance, and perspective. These stories demonstrate what I hope is a bit of entertainment and insight into my life's journey, but more importantly, yours too. I'm gonna guess that you've had some similar experiences. These stories articulate evidence of my ever-growing practice to honor my own preferences and truth. My practice of not only being my authentic self, but also sharing myself truthfully and eventually unapologetically to others. Have you ever been the one that sits out of an adventure? Whether by choice or circumstance, being left out, being excluded, it's not fun. So much so that sometimes we agree to participate just to avoid the feeling of being left out. I'll talk more about belonging and connection next time. When we are sitting on the bench, taking a step back, or excluded for any reason, this kind of waiting is surely a test of our patience. And then, once reconnecting with the divergent party, perhaps even reliving the experience through their retelling over and over, can also be a test of one's patience and even a bit of perseverance, especially if they elect to go again. Perseverance in my choice to not join them, as well as persevering in the patience of waiting for them to move on. My turn, or for whatever's next. So let me clarify. Patience is the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting upset. Perseverance is persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. You might say that perseverance is the quality that allows for the skill of patience. But either way, they seem to go hand in hand for me. Perspective. Perspective is the mind's shift that comes from surrendering or allowing for the pause and interruption. Perspective is what comes when we can surrender into the moment as a temporary condition, when we can allow it to be as it is. Perhaps perspective is not so much something we seek, but rather something we find through introspection, after or sometimes even during a defined moment of experience. Perspective is impossible to gain without patience and perseverance. So in conclusion, I hope sharing this story has inspired you as deeply as remembering it has inspired me. I hope that you are at least a little bit curious about your relationship with confidence and competence and their influence on each other as sister states. So I ask, what are you good at? How did you get good at it? Do you like doing it? What are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? Learning how you engage in the world, that's what I want you to find and say yes to. And in doing so, learn to say no to anything that doesn't align with your authentic self. In the process of finding that yes, chances are you'll have to turn down a lot of invitations. Be patient, persevere, trust the process of your practice so you can gain perspective and see more clearly. What's next will be so much better when you choose to say yes on your terms. When we say no, we don't need to explain why. When we say no, it doesn't mean we don't appreciate the invitation or value of the offered experience. On the contrary, simply saying no means no, not for me, not at this time, not in this way. In fact, saying no, thank you, can be a practice of compassion and gratitude as much as a practice of authentic boundary keeping. We can practice saying no in a way that extends gratitude for the invitation and the opportunity to pass on that invitation. In fact, this scenario is a beautiful place to be. To be gifted an opportunity with no strings or expectations attached is a gift given freely. And it just may be the greatest gift one can receive. Now, I share these stories to help you live better, grow in your authentic alignment, and to help you move freely through the tasks of your day. That means I want to hear from you. I want to know, what was your takeaway from today's story? What resonated most with you? What could you relate to from my childhood that maybe reminded you of something in yours? When did you say yes or when did you say no? What challenges? What questions? In other words, how are you shifting? And specifically, how are you practicing compassion and developing curiosity, creativity, and courage to grow in your confidence and competence? To be patient, to persevere, and to gather perspective. Now, if this is all new to you, take a deep breath. There's more to come. We'll get more specific about how to cultivate these 3 skills as we come back for Coach's Chat, and I want to welcome you to join me for that. But in the meantime, just notice the little shifts that you can integrate into your life, taking an extra pause for an inhale, evening out the breath, just like we've done in our Just Breathe practice. But what are you getting good at? What are you paying attention to? And then ask yourself, does this even matter? When I hear from you, I use your questions and your examples to expand and to personalize these messages so that they can support you in living well. So email me, find me on Facebook and Instagram, or pop into the studio if you're local. Whether you visit us in the studio or online, whether it's for a one-on-one or a group experience, we want to meet you in the practice. We offer circles, community practice, trainings, and personal treatments in body work, yoga therapy, and life's work coaching. We want to support you in living your life's work. May you breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. May you be well. May you learn to say no, thank you. Namaste. Hope to see you next time as we bring this journey into the connection of the 7th C as we build clarity through inspired shift. So now, if you're here live, you're welcome to ask any questions or make any comments or observations about this content or how you're feeling about receiving this content in this moment. You're welcome. Could you relate to some stories of saying yes when you didn't want to?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And kind of like in your scenario, if the opportunity had presented itself, I probably would have just, and did many times, just go through with it regrettably.
Yeah.
And like I had no alternative in the moment.
And it's amazing too sometimes, and we'll talk about this next week with Coach's Chat, but what we remember, right? That often we can remember the things that were out of our alignment and use them as self-flagellation tools. Instead of remembering those times when we did notice our alignment and choose to agree with it and celebrate them. Now, there's benefit to both, obviously, but unless we're also finding ways to celebrate that self-flagellation actually diminishes our ability to say no thank you and to say yes to what is in our alignment, right? In other words, why are we judging ourselves for things that we cannot change? Learn from them, find the yes, and practice that. Thanks. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you both for being here. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you.
Bye now.